think the only thing that I wanted, the only other thing I wanted to do was show you some of the sculpting, which I think I might have mentioned in classes, not my forte. Oh, right, so when you extrude, it leaves the curve there too. So I'm actually going to select both objects and, interesting. What's happening there? Oh, I didn't select both objects because I have the camera-based selection turned on, so I'm going to turn that back on, off, and there we go. So there's, why is that the case? That's weird. Okay, Maya bug, or not. Something's happening. I'm going to go ahead and save scene. Let's see. Did that allow me to... It's doing something. All right, so I am actually gonna, I think there's something funny that's happening. I'm just gonna leave that curve there for now and do a little bit of research and try to figure out what's going on there. But in the interim, if I go into my channel box layer editor, I can actually select, with my object selected, I can create a new layer and assign the selected object to that layer. So I'm going to say create a new layer. I'm going to name it, double click on the name and say weird curve and hit save. And then I can click on V for visibility and turn visibility off, kind of like Photoshop, while I figure out what's going on with that thing. All right, so I can still move my cup around, and it's allowing me to modify it without problems. It's just when I move the curve. Okay, so the only other thing, and I think I mentioned this, that I am like not super adept at is the sculpting tools. So sculpting allows you to kind of like push and pull faces and curves using a brush. So kind of like if you could curve using or sculpt using like a Photoshop brush or something. So that is actually under sculpting. I'm going to increase the amount of poly shape subdivisions here so I can get a little bit more discrete. And I can use this kind of, let's see, we'll use a pull tool. So that circle around the kind of center is actually the brush size. So it's kind of going to pull curves out using that brush size. If I wanted to pull more of those faces out, I can double click on my tool and increase the size of my brush, and then I'm pulling more faces out, and I can push them back in. And then if I wanted to like pull out bubbles or something, I can use this bubble tool, and it kind of inflates almost like a basketball certain areas, so I can pull bubbles out. And I think this is the kind of the opposite. It's like pushing faces kind of back in and creating a dimple. Yeah, so that's a really quick way to start, and you can do things like flatten, right? So if I wanted to bring that back down, I can flatten those curves. This creates more of like a stippled, so it's like pulling kind of like foam, right? So it's like an irregular, it's pulling out with like a regular weights or something. And then spiky, it's kind of doing the same thing but pulling out towards spikes. It's spiky. What is it actually called? Accentuate surface detail. So when you roll over any one of these menu items, you can see, I'm trying to point to it, in the lower left hand side of the screen down here, it'll show you what the tool is, right? So build up a surface. So I can kind of layer on top of a surface here, build it up, or I can level, so make a surface kind of flat. And so if I go into the side view now, it'll probably show us up as kind of flat. So those are the sculpting tools, and like the selection tools, you can turn on symmetry, right? So you can change the size of the brush, but you can also go in and use symmetry. So like if I wanted to object Y, you can see I can flatten on down here. You can actually see the little cursors, symmetry mode. So it's not looking for symmetrical faces, because the faces have already been modified, unlike the selection tool. So it's just going to use kind of like a spatialized geometry selection, right? And so if you're trying to model a face, for instance, let's model along the Z. You can like create eyes, right? Sockets for eyes, or like pull them out. And then like, model nose, and then like a mouth too. This is not my forte, so, but if you find this useful, feel free to utilize the kind of sculpting tools. It's a really quick way to get organic shapes, and some folks are just really adept at it. Folds tool, and you can kind of build up, right? Woo. Wonderful, super fun. I think that might be it for today. So let me double check so we've done the edge loops and this, some sculpting, my kind of funny attempt at sculpting a face here. Idiots. Subdivision, surface, and smoothing. I haven't combined a mesh. Actually I do want to do one more thing. Another really quick way to get complex shapes is actually to use one shape to cut another, right? So let's say I wanted to cut some eye sockets into this hideous face that I've just created. So if I go back into my quad view, pay no attention to my furry creature. Go back into my quad view. I can actually create some spheres. So go back into poly modeling, and I'm going to make a sphere. And let's say I wanted to, add this sphere to my shape here as an eyeball. This is really going to start looking pretty horrible. That's fine. So I'll select my shape. I'll kind of move it into place, and for now, while you're rendering, you can kind of just add shapes floating inside of one another. If you wanted to 3D print something, you can't do that. So what you use to combine shapes is something called a Boolean, and that is under our modeling toolkit. I'm going to shut this down. This Boolean tab here. So I'm going to select my eye, and then I'm going to select the shape that I want it to connect to, and then I'm going to say Boolean, and then say union. And so with the union, you can see it's actually gotten rid of the faces that are inside of overlapping inside one another. That means that it's going to be 3D printed. It also means that it's actually now one object. So all of these faces are combined. I can also do the same thing where I actually use, instead of a union, Boolean is like a logic. You might have heard or used Boolean when you're talking about things like either or. So the union is a Boolean and, but I can actually use this as a cutting tool as well. So if I wanted to select the object that I wanted to get cut, and then hold down Shift and select the cutting object, and say Boolean, and then say difference. So difference, it's actually going to cut into that shape. So let's see if I can rotate around here. So now it's a negative. It's actually cutting in to my kind of master shape. And then you could do things like, let's say I only wanted where the two overlapped. So I'll make a new sphere, or maybe make a cube so it's a little bit more obvious. A cube. Make it a little bit bigger here. All right, so let's say I only wanted to, I wanted this shape only where these two shapes overlapped. I would say position it, and then say select my cube, and then select the shape that I wanted it to kind of intersect with, and then Boolean, and then instead of union, I'd want to choose intersection, right? So now it's only going to preserve the geometry that overlaps, so you kind of have this like hard cut. So that's Boolean. All right, I think that's it for today. I hope this was useful, and I look forward to seeing your continued work. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.